Let's now have a conversation around the Eskom crisis. Let's speak now to Hilton Trollip, an independent consultant in energy research. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Eskom talking about the possibility of implementing higher stages of rolling blackouts in the coming days. Can things get to stage 8?
Good afternoon, Bongiwe. Thanks for inviting me, and good afternoon to all your listeners. In answer to your question, yes, load shedding can and is likely to get worse until various steps are taken to fix it. I saw the clip now with our president saying that we've got a serious problem, one, and two, that we don't know how long it's going to take to fix it. I'd just like to share with you, from a technical point of view, what the problem is. I'll try and be quick, and therefore what needs to be done to fix it. Because I think what was missing from the president's input was specific solutions to the problem. And I am going to presage this by saying that there's an unfortunate set of interactions going on, mainly from the Mineral Resources and Energy Minister, fighting, I think, with the Eskom CEO about what the solution to the problem is. So just some background to that. So can I do that, Bongi? Well, I'll take 1 minute to describe.
Go ahead, Hilton. Okay. Go ahead, Hilton. Go ahead very briefly.
And I shouldn't be smiling, because this is a big problem now. People are suffering. I worked out in Cape Town, we had 2.5 hours of electricity during business hours on Friday. So if you can imagine, it's with the existing coal-fired power stations that the problem is. So if you can imagine, Eskom's got 15, 16 power stations. Each one has got in it 6 huge machines. Each one has got a furnace burning coal, a boiler making steam, a steam turbine that turns a big generator. These things are bigger than huge buildings, each machine. Most of those machines, except for 2 of the power stations, Medupi and Kusile, are old. And unfortunately, we've had a power shortage now on and off for some 17 years. So what happened during that time is Eskom was forced to run. Remember, I said there are 15, 16 of these times 6. So there are about 90 of these big machines. So they were forced to run these really harder and harder, and they could not perform maintenance on them. Then state capture came along, and a lot of damage was done to Eskom as an organization through direct state capture, through cadre deployment. The corruption went right through the ranks. People got jobs there that shouldn't have got jobs, etc. Some of those people are still there. This is where we see the bad performance, etc. So we have an organization that's been really damaged, and we've got these 90 big machines that have been run really hard and not maintained properly. So this is the problem. And what's happened is every machine needs to get taken off the system and maintained. And if you don't do that, it breaks down. So imagine you've got 90 big trucks. What we've got at the moment is about 15 of those trucks are in the workshop getting planned maintenance, but about 30 are on the side of the road. And it's not always the same 30. As they fix those ones quickly on the side of the road to get them under pressure, to get them back onto the system, another one breaks down somewhere else on another road, and another one, and another one. So all of those machines are breaking down, most of them. Some are still a bit reliable. And the average availability in a good big fleet like this would be 80%, would be available all the time. In South Africa, that's gone down to 50%. Half of those 90 big machines simply are in such a condition that they're usually broken down. That's the problem. So what's the solution? This is where the big fight between the Minerals and Energy Minister and Eskom come in. The Minerals and Energy Minister is saying that if he was in charge, then he'd just go and fix those machines quickly. The problem is inside Eskom management, the engineers, etc., etc. I'm sorry, I've been an engineer for 40 years. I study this. I've worked for state-owned enterprises on boards. I've worked in big industry. I've worked in industry. I'm sorry, that's not possible. I believe from what I've seen, all the information presented by the Eskom engineers, quite simply, they are doing everything they can to keep those machines going with the staff and skills that they've got. Because remember, under state capture and cadre deployment, a lot of the best people left because they didn't want to work in a place like Eskom. And we're trying to get those people back. But with the people that we've got in the next few years and who we can get, we're not going to get those coal-fired power stations up to the level where we're going to stop load shedding. So what's the solution? Solution is rapid rollout of wind and solar power. And this is clear. We have modeled this. I've been doing modeling for many years. We know that if we put about 15 gigawatts of wind and solar power onto that system, load shedding will be a thing of the past. Whose responsibility is that? It's the Minerals and Energy Minister. That's the only person that can get that renewable energy onto the grid.
And
recently, I watched an interview. Yep, Bongiwe, sorry, I'm going
Pardon me, Hilton. Pardon me. It's no problem at all. Yeah. You and I have spoken in the past, and I'm listening to what you're saying. Yeah. And I suppose then the issue of structural defects then becomes another issue. But there's another issue when you talk about, those in charge. Just in recent days alone, looking at what has been happening, the Mineral Resources Minister, Gwede Mantashe, coming out to say that there's a deliberate act here to try and overthrow the government. Then you see a statement by Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan, who says that then Eskom needs to fix this problem as speedily as possible. Then you hear the president today talk about the fact that this is not deliberate. Other countries are dealing with an energy crisis. He says that he's going to be meeting with them tomorrow. What should be at the top of his agenda? Because I'm listening to you and it doesn't look like things are moving as speedily as they should.
Brilliant question. Thanks, Bongiwe. So in a world where I could advise the president what he should say at that meeting tomorrow, he should say to both those ministers, don't undermine the morale at Eskom and make unfounded comments about what's going on there. Or if it's so serious, that is treason. If the people at Eskom are deliberately not fixing those machines to undermine the government, that's not just some little technical matter or management matter. That's treason. That is messing up your country for some ulterior. Let's see the evidence. I think that is so I would, if I was the president, I'd say, Mr. Mantashe, we're long friends. We go back a long way. Where's your evidence? And if there is evidence, let's see it. Let's sort that out. I doubt they'll find evidence. Otherwise, we would have seen it. So what I would do if I was the president, I'd also say, Mr. Mantashe, are you an engineer? Can you actually tell Eskom against all, and also outside engineers, such as myself, a whole lot of independent experts, how come you suddenly know much more than these people about fixing power stations? And I would also then tell him, and this is the other thing, I'd say, your department, the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy, the Electricity Regulation Act states, you and you only, it says the minister in the regulations, are responsible for putting out a plan for reliable energy supply and then implementing that plan. To do that, if we want to so let's say we can't fix those Eskom power stations to the extent that we need to, and I believe that's a fact, then we need to put this new power on the grid. We also agree on that. It is a fact that the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy has failed for 7 to 8 years to put more than about 800 megawatts of new contracts onto the grid. They have run 2 disastrous bidding windows in a disastrous risk mitigation independent power producer program. If I was the president, I'd say to the minister, the energy minister, I'd say, you have got the IPP office. That is where all the solution is going to come from. Please, I'm going to take that IPP office out of your ministry because it is stuck there. And it really worked well when it was at the side of the ministry from 2011 to 2014. We're going to take it out again, and we are going to be serious now about signing power purchase contracts with IPPs so we can start building them fast. That's the first. And then the other thing I'd say to Pravin Gordhan, I'd say, Mr. Gordhan, it's been found now that Eskom doesn't have enough transmission capacity on the national grid to connect IPPs. Please have a look how many IPPs we need to get onto the grid to get overload shedding, and make it a priority. Use the Just Energy Transition funding. It's there. They've said they will use it for transmission grids. Use it to build that transmission grid fast. So that's exactly what I'd say.
So we've got about 20 seconds to wrap this conversation. The president in the past saying that Eskom is too big to fail, and I'm quoting him saying, we will not allow Eskom to fail, we will rebuild it so it can execute its developmental mandate. Listening to you, it doesn't sound like this plan is on track.
It's not. They don't have a plan on the table. I haven't seen it. Not Eskom. The DMRE don't have a plan, because only the DMRE can put the plan for new generation on the table. Eskom does. It's not its job. And I just want to say about Eskom failing. Eskom government, we gave them another 32 billion bailout this year. We gave them 20 last billion. We're bailing them out all the time. It's too big to fail financially, and we have to bail it out, because a completely collapsed Eskom can't go. It's degrading, but it can degrade and degrade and degrade and degrade, and that can happen, and that is what's happening. So yes, we must make Eskom work. We must make it work with make it collect IPPs. I just wanted to say, you sent me a question on IPPs once. Eskom doesn't pay for the IPPs. Independent private sector investors build the IPPs. When they're working, they then have a contract to supply the power to Eskom, and Eskom only pays for the power it gets. So, and then Eskom sells that power onto customers. The customers are crying out for that power, but the DMRE is not connecting, implementing. They don't have a plan for the IPPs, and they're not connecting the IPPs, signing those contracts.
All right, Hilton, thank you so much for your time. Always a pleasure to speak to you. That's Hilton Trollip, an independent energy analyst.